David pushed up onto his elbows and looked over at Callum and Cassie. They were both conscious, thank God, though Callum was staring at him as if by laughing he proved he'd lost his mind. Given that they'd just time-traveled from the Middle Ages to the 21st century, he didn't think anyone should blame him for being a little punchy. Nonetheless, he quit laughing. His stomach clenched at the magnitude of the distance that now lay between him and Lily and Arthur. But as soon as the thought of them came into his head, he brutally crushed it. The only thing that would return him to them was to face full-on the reality of his present circumstance. His immediate concern, beyond the fact of their location, was the precarious condition of the ship. Looking down at the deck, it appeared that they no longer had a stern at all, which would explain why none of his men or the ship's crew had time-traveled with them. The cog must have split in two on its way to sinking. The loss of half the cog was daunting, and David hoped they weren't going to sink to the bottom just yet. The cog was riding relatively flat, though with a definite and disconcerting tilt downward from where they lay to the water, which lapped ominously at the ragged boards 20 feet away. He was pleased to see that the storm had never happened in this world, or if it had happened in 1289, it didn't matter in the slightest to the sunny morning in 2017 they were currently experiencing. I'd ask what happened, but... Cassie rolled off Callum and sat up, allowing him to pop up between her and David. Neither man said anything, and Cassie finished her thought. I guess at this point it's pretty clear. She looked over at David. You could have been a little less opaque. Time travel is still hard for me to say out loud, even after all the times it's happened, David said. And I could have been wrong. We could have just drowned. Even as he spoke, the cog tipped a bit more towards the stern. Instinctively, the three of them scurried backwards like crabs, trying to bring the damaged ship back into balance. I can't believe you brought us back, Cassie said. Not on purpose, I assure you, David said. If prior experience is anything to go by, this is September 2017, but I don't recognize our location. What do you think? He studied the stretch of land half a mile away, and wondered if they could swim the distance, if the cog decided within the next minute or two to sink to the bottom. At least it's green. I know where we are. That's the Penarth Head, near Cardiff. Callum made this comment without any inflection in his voice. The shape of the bluff, now that David had a chance to study it, was definitely familiar. They'd sailed out of Cardiff Harbour not 12 hours ago, so David had seen it then. But the adjacent pier and the 6 to 10-story buildings lining the esplanade were not familiar. There was no mistaking that they weren't in the Middle Ages anymore. Now that his initial laughter had faded, a heavy weight came to rest on David's heart. He glanced at his friends, sensing that they weren't feeling exhilaration either. For all that both Cassie and Callum had confessed more than once the desire to return to the modern world, actually returning was something else entirely. Now that they were here, they seemed more stunned than anything, and neither smiled. For David's part, he was disgusted. He really didn't have time for this. I know that we've been here for 2 minutes, and it's probably too early to make any decisions, or even think about the logistics of getting back, but you have to know that I'm already thinking about it. I'm giving myself 2 days here, and then we're gone. Or I'm gone, if you don't want to come. I don't think I have to tell you that my preference would be for you to stay with me, to return with me, but you'll have to make your own decision when the time comes. When neither Cassie nor Callum responded immediately, David added, Not to be overly formal, Callum, but as of this moment, I release you from my service. That's not... Callum cut himself off with a glance at Cassie, who swung her gaze away from the shoreline to look at David. Don't be ridiculous. Of course we're coming back with you. Cassie brushed her hands together and stood up.